Building websites is a breeze with the framework as you please, easy as slicing cheese with the tools such as these. Structured pages quick, no CSS to make you sick. Use the layout that you pick, navigation helps you click. Icons, buttons, you can tap your containers, close the gap. Responsive gridding is a snap. You'll be launching off the map, blasting off with Bootstrap, blasting off with Bootstrap.
Welcome back to Blasting Off with Bootstrap. This is Level 4, Section 1, Enough CSS to be Dangerous. Our page is coming together, but let's see what we can do to make it even better. In this section, we'll add a dash of style using more Bootstrap awesomeness. To start out, we'll focus on what's above the fold, our lead and these buttons, which are kind of our main call to action on the entire page. Let's see what we can do to encourage people to click on them. Here's the section of our page that we'll be looking at. This row contains a header, our lead text, the buttons, and that image that only shows up for those larger screens. This entire row could stand out quite a bit more though. One way to make this stand out more is to use Bootstrap's well class, which will give it a nice inset effect to the entire element row. If we check this out in the browser, we'll see that there's a background on this element now, but also a border with rounded corners around it. It's not a bad change for just adding one little class. To make it stand out even more, we could specify a bit more padding within the element by adding a well-lg class to it. The only thing this will do is add a touch more padding within our element to make it slightly larger. Since this is our main focus of the page, using this well-lg class makes a lot of sense here. Similarly, if part of our page needed a little bit less padding, we could use the well-sm class to decrease the amount of padding around the well. We can open this up in a browser and see that our section definitely stands out much more than it did before. The background color and rounded border are a clean addition to our page. Those buttons are starting to seem like they don't belong on our page. Kind of ugly, right? Let's work on improving those guys next. Here's the HTML for our buttons so far. These are functional, but they will look slightly different in all browsers. In order to let Bootstrap style these buttons so that they look the same for all browsers, we'll need to add a class of btn to our buttons. If we looked at them now, they'd look completely different. They have some padding around them, and there's this nice gray background. However, nothing happens when you mouse over them, making it really tough to tell if these buttons are working. They're also a little bit small for being such an important part of our page. What can we do to fix that? To increase their size, we can add another Bootstrap class of btnlg to both of these button elements. This will cause these buttons to show up with a larger font and add a little bit more padding to them. There are a few other button sizes that we can use as well, including XS, SM, and LG. These sizes should be a little bit familiar because they're the same sizes that we used for all of our grids. The same way we started by designing for medium-sized screens, that's the default for buttons as well. If you don't specify a button size, you can assume it'll just use the medium size. One important thing here is that we're again adding multiple classes to our button. This is similar to how we added multiple classes when we were working with glyphicons earlier. Each additional class adds unique style to our buttons, combining them to create our intended appearance. Gray buttons that don't change colors don't do much for the imagination. Let's go ahead and add some additional button classes to specify a color for both of our buttons. For our Take the Tour button, we're going to use the btn default class, indicating that this is a normal button on our page without any additional meaning to it. Our Book Tickets Now button though, well, that's actually the primary action on our page that we want everyone to click when they come to our site. For that one, we'll add a class of btn primary to it. Now, if we check these out in the browser, we'll see the Tour button has this white background, while the Book Tickets Now button adds the first real touch of color to our page, which will immediately draw attention to it. We're not limited to white and blue for button backgrounds though. Bootstrap provides a handful of other colors that we can work with. These button styles aren't characterized by their colors, but rather based on their intention. For instance, if you had a button on your page to launch Rocket Bus, we'd probably want it to use the BTN Danger class, because that is a potentially dangerous action. Likewise, if we wanted people to feel comfortable placing an order, we might add a BTN Success class to our form submit. Alright, we've done a few cool things. Let's check out what our page looks like in a few different resolutions. Well, you can see that in small mode, our well is attractive and stands out, and our buttons look plenty big to draw attention. Additionally, if we shrink the browser down to extra small mode, the well stretches all the way across the page without that same white background showing on each side of it. And so, you've reached the end of this section. It's time for you to see if you know enough CSS to be dangerous in the challenges. And I'll see you back in section 2.